I have said I think the metals and the miners will peak after the market. So if we get a peak in the market, let's say in March or April, you could carry the metals rally into the end of the second quarter, maybe even beyond that. My target for gold is 3,000. I see gold going to 3,000 by, let's say, next summer or before. I see silver going to 60. That's been my target pre-bust. I actually have said of late, we might even see it get as high as 75.
Earlier this year, when everyone believed the Federal Reserve's fight to bring down inflation was going to cause a massive crash in the markets, David Hunter, a popular contrarian macro strategist, predicted a short-term meltup, which he said would take the S&P 500 to a new all-time high of $6,000 to $7,000 and gold to $3,000 per ounce. Hunter's predictions of a short-term meltup also included silver, which he predicted was going to hit $60 per ounce before the end of the bust. According to the contrarian analyst, the meltup would be brought on by the market sensing the weakening of the Federal Reserve's hawkish stance. Hunter's predictions were made almost a year ago, but last week we saw the S&P 500 move sharply towards all-time highs after Fed Chair Jerome Powell's surprisingly dovish remarks following an equally dovish FOMC meeting. According to reports from the meeting, committee members are predicting at least 3 rate cuts in 2024. The market has had a very strong reaction to that news, and Hunter is predicting that the reaction in 2024 will be even stronger. So strong, in fact, that he expects the S&P to soar to a new all-time high of $7,000. He adds that that huge rally in equities will be followed by an equally strong rally in precious metals, taking gold to an all-time high of $3,000 and silver to $75 per ounce. What comes next will, however, be much less positive. Hunter is predicting a severe global bust that will cause a massive crash across the board. We will now bring you clips from Hunter's recent interview with Liberty and Finance. Please watch, like, and share this video. Also, ensure you turn on post notifications and subscribe to the channel for more videos on gold and silver. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
Yeah, I think metals and miners will be strong in the meltup. The miners will be among the leaders, I believe, in terms of performance. It's been slow getting started. It's been a very frustrating group for a number of years, but they have bottomed and they have turned up, and they're starting to come out of some of their bottoms now in a little more aggressive fashion. My target for gold is 3,000, and that target is what I call a pre-bust target because I am calling for a global bust to occur after this meltup, a gold bust and a big bear market to occur after the equity meltup. So I see gold going to 3,000 by, let's say, next summer or before. I see silver going to 60. That's been my target pre-bust. I actually have said of late, we might even see it get as high as 75. So, I have a range of 60 to 75 there. Those are huge moves, and moves we haven't seen in, those would be all-time highs for both of those metals if we got there. But we also haven't had anything close to those kind of rallies since we had a very short one after the March lows during 2020. March to August, they ran aggressively. Before that, it was 2016. We had something similar to this. So it's been a while, and a lot of the so-called gold bugs have kind of walked away from the metal and said, forget it. It's frustrated me too many times. So I think we have the conditions now. It's very much ripe for that kind of a move. People are very discouraged by the metals and the miners. And I think that's exactly how bottoms are formed. Like I said, I think the bottom is behind us and we're starting to move out of that bottom. Yeah, it's interesting. I talk about how they've not done well of late, but I'm really talking about silver because gold is not far off its all-time high. So yeah, gold is acting better than silver has over the last several years, but it's very close to it did break out, but it was a very momentary breakout and happened basically in the overnight markets and reversed itself immediately. So that caused people to think that was a top and gold was, giving you a final fake out to the upside and then reversing. I don't believe that at all. I think we had a breakout, but it wasn't ready to keep going. And now it's regrouped, and I think we are going to see new highs here very soon. And once it makes new highs, I think it's pretty clear sailing for the next several months. Silver obviously has a lot more overhead resistance to work through. It's nowhere near its highs of a few years ago. So that one is going to be, probably a little bit harder climb. But typically, we find that when you're in a bull market for the metals, silver outperforms gold. So I think even though it's not going to run right to highs, it'll take many months. It is going to probably have better day-to-day outperformance or better performance in gold. Both will be up nicely, but silver will probably outperform.
As the melt-up reaches more advanced stages in the coming months, Hunter says there will be more signs of the global economy, starting from the banking sector, buckling under the pressure of all the unchecked leverage. The result of this, Hunter adds, will be a global deflationary bust that would be accompanied by a financial crisis of historical proportions. Hunter says the bust will have the same timeline as a recession, but will resemble more of a depression in intensity, and he is predicting that it could happen within the next 5 to 6 months. Hunter also compares the bust to the global financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. The macro strategist believes that's when the bust should have happened, but central banks came to the rescue by pumping trillions of dollars into the system. When the bust hits, Hunter predicts that there will be global multi-billion-dollar bank collapses, and the stock market will crash by 80% and not reach previous highs again for another 2 decades. But the story will be different for commodities, which Hunter believes will have a supercycle of epic proportions. Let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, I don't typically use the word crash, but it is definitely, it'll fit that description because it's, I think, a peak to trough in the equity market, a peak to trough potential decline of 80%. We haven't had an 80% decline in the overall stock market since 1929 when it was down 90%. So that shows you how dramatic that is. And I think it comes because of an economic and financial bust, meaning an economy that's going to be in real trouble worldwide. This is global. And a financial crisis that I think will exceed the one in 2008-9, which means some big bank failures, more of those concentrated overseas. Europe's certainly a candidate, but so is Asia. So, Canada and Australia, their banks are more leveraged than ours now. We took our hit in 2008-9, and our banks got some religion forced on them to, recapitalize, make sure they have more capital or less leverage. So not that our banks aren't going to be suffering. I think there's less likelihood that we see our big banks go under. However, if it's as big a financial crisis as I think it's going to be, there's a lot of counterparty risk. So you can't rule out that, what's going to be hitting all the banking system is going to be hard enough to cause at least one or two over here, some, either close calls or having to be bailed out. So I think that's coming. The melt up first, because the tightening is over and people have to, run back into the market here, reposition. But probably by the second half of next year, we're in trouble because we are moving towards a recession. We're not in one right now, probably. But we had a strong third quarter. Fourth quarter is not as strong, but it's still above water. I think as we move towards the middle of next year, we'll be in recession, and then that recession spills into something worse because of the leverage in the system. We have, as I like to say, we have 300 trillion, and it's now moved up to more like 320 trillion in global debt. Debt across the globe. A lot of it's sovereign debt, but there's a lot of private debt. And then on top of that, we have quadrillions in notional value of derivatives, which is we're at levels in both debt and derivatives that we've never been at before. Even in 2008-9, we were high. We were at that time all-time highs, but this has gone another level above that. When you have that kind of leverage in the system, and then you have a hiccup or have a problem, it just exacerbates it. So that's why, very simply, we can have what I call a global bust, which we have not had a global bust in the post-World War II era. This is not just a recession. This is something worse. The economics of the bust are very negative. I mean, we're going to have a deep recession, hard landing, and coupled with a financial crisis, maybe the biggest in history, what that triggers, whether the central banks know it yet or not, and they don't, but when it hits, there's only one tool that can be put to work quickly and quickly enough to try to save a system that's free falling, and that is money. You will see money printed at rates even faster in 2020. My estimate is that the Fed will push out 20 trillion in the course of fighting the bust. So, between middle of this year and say middle of next year or the end of next year, I think you could see 20 trillion expansion in the balance sheet. We saw unheard of 5 trillion expansion back in 2020, 2021. So this is 4 times that.
A commodity supercycle of epic proportions. That's what Hunter is predicting for precious metals like gold and silver and top commodities like crude oil. But not before we get a complete financial reset when central banks finally realize that pumping more money into the economy is like throwing some more fuel in a raging fire. Let us know what you think about the macro strategist's predictions in the comments section below. Please share your comments, thoughts, and observations. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and smash the like button for more videos on gold, silver, and other precious metals. Thanks for watching.